everyone, my name is Vina, aka Miss WOCReader, and welcome back to my channel. So I wanted to make a video, but I wasn't really sure what my topic was going to be, but scroll threads for more than 10 minutes and you're definitely going to find a topic, as I did, inspired by this thread. It says, I can't stand when y'all say the plots in these books are unrealistic. N-word, it's fiction. That's the point. If you want some realistic-ish, read a damn non-fiction book. Use your imagination. Escape reality. I saw that take and I'm like, no. Just no. Fiction is not a synonym for fantasy. So you don't have to read nonfiction to get a realistic story. And I feel like people sometimes rely on the fact that their book is fiction as an excuse to have plot holes, as an excuse to not really have to build the world in their book. Even within fantasy, you need some level of realism. And that had me thinking about books that I've enjoyed and how realistic they were and how that affected my experience reading them. I read a lot of romance. I read a lot of contemporary romance specifically, and I like some realism in my contemporary romance because the whole point of contemporary is that it's in a setting similar to ours. It's set in this real world setting. And when the characters just don't move like people would in the real world, I find that those books are the ones that I enjoy the least. Like, one of my bookish pet peeves is when a book is too meta. Like, I've noticed a trend the past few years with some authors doing that, where they'll have these characters in their contemporary romance stories talking about tropes in the way in which we talk about tropes online when discussing books. And nobody talks about tropes like that in real life. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, characters calling out about a love triangle. When have you ever heard somebody in real life say that they are in a love triangle? When you have books where there are characters trying to date based off of trope. They're like, oh, I want an enemies to lovers romance, or I want a friends to lovers romance. Nobody talks like that. And when I see stuff like that on page, it takes me out because it just breaks my concentration. I have to stop and put down the book and think about what they wrote. And I get a little irked. I might have to send a little message to my friends. So that just makes my reading experience drag out longer too. I love a contemporary romance where I feel like the characters do look like real people. Like, I want to feel like I'm looking at these people's real life, like a little glimpse in, not necessarily like a movie, but I'm peeking behind the curtain and seeing people who could be my neighbors next door. Somebody who I think does that well is Sunithia Williams. This one is Summoning Up Love, which is one of my favorites by her. I enjoyed this book a lot. It is just a sweet small town romance, and the brothers in this book do ghost hunting. So you have that element of them chasing something that they're not sure is real, of them going after the paranormal, but you also have a story about two adults that are at a crossroads in their life and they're trying to figure out what their next career moves are. And that resonated with me as somebody who is an adult. Specifically, the past couple of years, I've been pondering, okay, what is my career path going to look like? Especially because then, sometime after I read this book, I had been laid off from my job and was going on a lot of interviews. So I was getting asked that question of, where do you see yourself in like 5 years? What type of career do you want to have? So it was interesting and very relatable reading a book where you had characters who were like, okay, what is my next career path going to be? And one of our main characters here, Dion, he doesn't know what his path is going to be. He's been at the long-term stable job for years and years, but it doesn't feel like they actually appreciate him. And he's wondering, should I take that leap and move, or should I just continue where it's safe? So having that little bit of realism just really enhanced this story. This is Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo. So I read this book at the same time when my dad was very sick, right before he passed away. And the realism in this book definitely resonated with me. So much of the book, like when they were promoting it, they were talking about the magic within it, So people came in looking for like this hardcore, like fantasy setting, like this tangible magic system. And it's really not that type of book. The magic in this story is the magic of just being an everyday person, the magic of the Black experience, that thing that connects us all to, across the diaspora. So you have these women and they have these special gifts, and one of them has a dream about a death in the family. So the whole book, they are like bringing up all these old memories and wondering when this death is going to happen. And I loved how she incorporated just that magic of your grandmothers and your mother and your ancestors, while also talking about the things that you would be thinking about when you're contemplating a death in the family. Like, I did so much reflection around the time that I was reading this, leading up to my dad's death, and then even after, about what my family looks like, what their life would have been way back when. We were sharing stories. I was trying to piece together little history that we didn't really talk about. And she captured that so well, all the different thoughts that are going through your mind when you're experiencing a loss, the things that you wish you knew, the things that you wanted to say, the topics that you're not sure how to broach. And as I said before, a book can be fantasy and still have elements of realism in it. I read Blood Slaves by Marcus Redman a couple of months ago, and this book was intense. He definitely leans more into history and realism while also incorporating vampires. So basically in this book, it's set during the time of slavery, but it's like, what if the slaves were able to free themselves? Like, if you liked Sinners, but you were like, I wish that people became vampires and just started tearing stuff up, that's what this book was. It wasn't set during the same time, of course. It was set years before. But you have these people in the South, and they are struggling. Like, when I say this was an intense read, there's a trigger warning for everything in here. He puts a trigger page on the warning on the first page. It's very accurate. So definitely read the list before you hop in. But we see the horrors of slavery and the way that the people were suffering and how it breaks their spirit, and that just intensifies your emotions and connects you to these characters and their struggle. And then you see people slowly choose the path towards vampirism because, like, well, I could be good and I could still keep waiting, but I've been waiting and hoping and trying to be the better person, and that's not doing anything for me. So then the book kind of explores the question of what actually makes humanity humanity. And do you have to be a good person? What makes you a good person? Why aren't we allowed to do the same types of things that our oppressors do? So while it is a story where there's vampires and there's definitely parts that they're doing things that aren't true to life, there's that realism woven throughout where you're watching these real people. You may be looking at them in ways we don't often look at these people when we talk about history. Like, they have hopes, they have dreams, they have everyday struggles outside of just the suffering that they're going through. When I say a book is unrealistic, it's usually because the people in it don't feel like real people. And I do, to some level, want them to feel like real people. I'm not one of those people who like has to put myself inside the character, and I'm more of a person who like wants to feel like I'm peeking over a curtain into these characters' lives. But I do want some level of realism in my books. When I'm picking up a fantasy book, even if it's set in a world that is nothing like ours, I want to know, how does this society work? Like, what is their government looking like? How do they navigate every day? Like, do they have like a certain salary that they make and that's how they purchase things? I feel like people skip those details sometimes, and it could just enhance their story so much. I also don't want everything just explained away by magic, and that's something that I had to think about while also writing my own fantasy, especially as somebody who is writing a contemporary fantasy that is set in the real world. I'm an urban fantasy lover, so that is what I gravitate towards reading and writing. And when I was writing in my urban fantasy this past year, I had to think about, okay, so how do they get from point A to point B? How does this main character who starts off not knowing how to do magic become a person skilled with magic at the end of the book? How do I make it seem like a realistic journey? Because you want to show the characters kind of learning magic along the way, but you don't want to be just like training scene after training scene. And you don't want readers to turn around and be like, she just magically knew how to do everything. Like, one minute she didn't know how to do anything, the next minute she was doing everything. Because I've read that criticism of fantasy books before, and I've also read fantasy books before where I'm like, how did this person become this all-powerful being, and last week they could barely tie their shoes? So finding that balance in the things that I read and write has been interesting. Just examining how people do that has really helped me. I think there is room to say, okay, I'm going to show you this person's struggles so that it just makes it that much more fulfilling at the end when they're able to triumph. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section down below. Do you like a bit of realism in your books, or are you okay with just hand waving anything that happens because it's fiction? And if you like this video, make sure and hit that like button. Thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!